ॐ भद्रं मे अपि वातय मनः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Everybody can hear? Yes? No? Namaste to all. Always a privilege and a delight to be here. And this time we will be looking at a particular text called Panchadashi. Is there one copy there for me also? Thank you. This text means that which has 15 chapters, and it is the magnum opus of one very scholarly rishi and a swami whose name is Vidyaranya. Vidyayaha Aranya, so forest of knowledge. And also Aranya is one of the lineages within ancient India, the Swami lineages, named after various things in the nature. This is like the Swami last names. Yeah. Some Swami last names are very cool. Aranya, forest; Giri, Parvata, mountain; Sagara, ocean, like this. Very nice lineages based on this. And he was an outstanding scholar and an outstanding individual as well, because before he became a Swami, he was the chief minister of the Vijayanagara Empire. The Vijayanagara Empire is one of the very prosperous kingdoms in southern India 500 years ago. And he helped the kings to rule it, and lived for a very long time also. And then after he gave up everything, he wrote many books. In the beginning, before he became a Swami and was given the name Vidyaranya, his name was Madhava. So he wrote a biography of Adi Shankara, Madhaviya Vijaya, and then a fantastic book on Sanskrit grammar, and that is called Madhaviya Dhatu Vritti. It's a must for all researchers and scholars of Sanskrit. Beautiful book. And then other works include the famous Jivan Mukti Viveka. What is freedom while being alive? Very beautiful book. Fantastic book. And there also you get lots of details about how the sannyasis used to live. How many kinds of sannyasis are there, and what are their duties, and what are their how their lifestyle is, and how one can grow spiritually to attain this freedom from bondage, samsara, while being alive. So, like this, many books he wrote, and this Panchadashi he is very well known for. And in fact, some of the adherents of this work say that you don't need any other work on Vedanta. If you study this, you will get moksha, freedom from all kinds of wanting everything. You will get freedom. This is what they say. So the topic at hand that we are going to study is the subject matter of the 10th chapter. The Panchadashi is divided into quintads of 5 chapters each, and the first quintad, all the chapters end in Viveka, Tattva Viveka, this Viveka, Panchakosha Viveka, Mahavakya Viveka, like this. And then the middle one, Deepa, Nataka Deepa, that is what we are going to study, Kutastha Deepa, Tripti Deepa, and the last one ends in Ananda. Vishayananda, Brahmananda, Vidyananda, like this, all these. This is how it is divided. And we are taking a chapter from the bang middle of this work. And it assumes that, when we study the chapter, it's very clear that it assumes that we know already a lot of things that have gone by in the first 9 chapters. But we don't. So what are we what are we going to do? We are going to wing it somehow. Okay? We're just going to wing it, and we are going to do our best to see what does this have to do with us, and besides, what does it have to do with life as theatre. I'm surprised to find the people here, because I thought when they saw the title of the talks, Life as Theatre, I thought nobody will come, because I thought that they will come to the conclusion that my life is already a theatre. What more do I have to learn about my life, which is already a big drama? Yes, in 3D. Everyday drama, and in fact, so much addicted we are to the drama that we forget that which is unaffected by drama, which is what? Rama. This is what you have to do. Yeah. So if we had to give an alternative title to these sets of talks, it would be From Drama to Rama. That is what it is. That is how we have to look at it. Because the drama we know. We know the drama. Every day some drama or the other. Everything becomes a drama. And we are addicted to the drama because there is some, garam masala in the drama. It is not, bland. Something happens. I create some kind of a mini earthquake every day in the heart, in the head, in other people's head and heart also. Not satisfied with my own heart and head, I put some earthquake, tsunami in other people also. And then when there is a reaction on their part, then I come to the conclusion, this is how we lead our lives. Then we come to the conclusion, oh, okay, they are getting angry, that means they must love me. We have to go to this extent to find out if somebody loves or not. And this is something that there is this parampara of drama. Just like this, there is a parampara. Parampara means a lineage of drama. Just like there is a lineage of this Shastra, Brahma Vidya, there are lineage of teachers, there are lineages of masters, and then who teach the disciples and who in turn become the masters. Here also there appears to be a lineage of drama, which unfortunately we have inherited from the clan, the family, the society, the community, etc. And then it is justified by saying, why you're only talking to me? Everybody else is like this. Without drama, I will feel funny. And then, in order to be acceptable in society, little bit of drama is needed. Because that is how everybody is. This is what is the drama. And so, this addiction to this drama is itself called samsara. And those who have attended some talks before know the definition of samsara. What is the definition of samsara? Some sorrow or the other. Okay? That is what is samsara. This is what it is. So this is what is called samsara. This is what makes it difficult to stay in the body, makes it difficult to stay in the mind, makes it difficult to stay in one's life, to inhabit one's life fully, and to catch a hold of one's goals, and to achieve whatever I have to achieve, for which Bhagavan has given this body-mind-sense complex. That itself becomes a big impediment. In other words, I do not lead life. Life somehow leads me. That is why when one asks somebody in any language, in any Indian language, how is it going? It's going. In Hindi we say chalta hai, it's somehow going. It's okay. In any language this is what it is. Something is going, it's okay. Yeah. And in the West we resort to sign language. How is life? That is how life is. What does it mean? Yeah, some things are good, some things are not very good. How is the job? Same. Yeah. Pay is good, commute is very bad. Have to drive for a long time. How are the children? Speed increases a little bit. Yeah. Because they are teenagers now. Yeah. Since they are teenagers, they don't listen to anything. Yeah. Neither do they know what to do on their own, nor will they listen to reason. Okay, so that's what. Then finally, the question we have all been waiting for, how is the marriage? This is what it is. Chalta hai, everything keeps going, everything is okay, everything is not optimum, not optimal. Something is missing. And that which is missing, one tries to reproduce by more and more drama. And this drama, meaning, what do we mean by drama? We all know, but just to have some kind of a shared understanding what this drama is about. This drama is about trying to feel something, trying to get to that which is real, trying to have some kind of a hold over the emotions, but not really succeeding in that. And this drama has to do with making things very big. Yeah. Actually, what I want to be is big, but then I don't know what I am. So I think I'm as good as this mind, as good as this body, as good as my emotions. So the emotions become very big. The things that one is worried about, they become very, very, very big. Yeah, today I was hearing that somebody is very bothered about their something, those, what are they called? Those safety areas where those orange balls are. Yeah. Oh, why do we have to look at this? We want to look at the ocean, but why do we have to look at this? This is the drama. One gets bothered by small things, and then when we don't know the biggest thing that there is, and more discussion about that for the whole week, so don't worry about it right now. Yeah. When we don't know the biggest thing there is, the small things become big. That which is the biggest thing, what is its name? Brahman. Brihi Vriddhau. That which is big. And the Shastra, the teaching, deliberately does not say how big is Brahman. Because big generally is an adjective. Big means what? Please look at this big mustard seed. Where will you look? You have to look down. Please look at this big mountain. Then you have to look up. So what are we talking about? Are we talking about mountain big? Are we talking about mustard seed big? What kind of big are we talking about? Here, the teaching which really rewrites the grammar for us has made big into a noun, not an adjective. It's not qualifying anything. It itself is big, means what? Limitlessly big. There is nothing that is as big as that. And this is what is called Brahman. And this is one's nature that is not understood. This nature has to be understood. This is what is Vidyaranya Swami's premise as he begins the chapter. So two things are there. As he begins the Panchadashi itself, there is a prayer. We have a saying that if the work does not have a prayer, please do not study a work that is without a prayer. So we have very beautiful opening prayers, and here also we have a very beautiful opening prayer that we will chant every day. You will learn it by the end of the week, and we will enter this 10th chapter with the overall Mangala Charanam, the opening prayer for the Panchadashi. You can just repeat. Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padambu Janmane. That's correct. Don't hesitate. You are all very good. Yes. Guru Padambu Janmane Savilasa Mahamoha Savilasa Mahamoha Grahagrasaika Karmane Grahagrasaika Karmane Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padambu Janmane Savilasa Mahamoha Grahagrasaika Karmane Namaha says, no, that's for me, okay? So, Namaha, salutations, surrender. Unto whom? Shankarananda, name of the Guru. Name of whose Guru? Swami Vidyaranya's Guru. We can also say that there is a pun there. There is a double entendre there. Shankarananda and also the original Guru is Bhagavan. So Shankara, who is Ananda, who is of the nature of limitlessness, who is of the nature of limitless joy. Unto this Guru, who is the very embodiment of Shankara, Bhagavan, Shiva, Namaha. And who is this Shankarananda? So this Namaha is done very, very beautifully. This is a very nice, very nice invocation. So when you invoke the teacher, the feet, we touch the feet as a way of greeting. And here the greeting is done to the feet which are talked about as Ambu Janma. Ambu, water. Janma, born of water. What is born of water? Fish, algae, so many things. But here we have to take Rudhi Artha, the contextual meaning. What is born of water? Lotus. Lotus. And lotus becomes the symbol of moksha, purity that is required for moksha, and moksha in the Shastra, in the teaching, primarily because the lotus flower has a ability to ward off any dirt. It has small, small hairs, the petals and the lily pads, the lotus pad, the leaves. So even if you throw some sludge on it, it will all slip down, fall down. And so this Guru Pada Ambu Janmane. So unto this lotus feet of the teacher, Namaha. This is the Namaha to the lotus feet of the teacher. And then what does the Guru do is given in the next line. Savilasa Mahamoha Grahak Grasa Ekakarmane. Ekam karma yasya. For whom there is only one job. This is a one job Guru. This tells us what the Guru's responsibility is. One job Guru. What does the Guru do? Eka karmane. Unto this one job Guru, my namaskars. Grasa. Grasanam is the karma. The action of the Guru, the single action is eating. Oh, foodie Guru. I have a lot in common with this Guru. Even I like to eat. No. What does she eat? What does he eat? Graha. Graha means anything that grabs, which is now, it's an oceanic metaphor. So we can talk of, what are those things? What was that film with the big thing, Jaws. Yes. Yeah. So graha is that which has these huge jaws, bites. And then it could be killer whale, it could be shark, it could be crocodile. Anything that bites and does not let go is called graha. So, eating this graha is the job of the Guru. Oh, the Guru eats fish. Okay, fish eating Guru, pescatarian Guru. Yeah. But we have to see what this killer whale is. What it is, we have to see. And what is that killer whale? Savilasa Mahamoha Graha. So this Mahamoha is the Graha. Maha, big. Like Mahatma, Maharaja. Mahan means big. So in compound, the nakara goes away, so only we have Maha. So Maharaja. And here Maha Moha. Moha means what? Delusion. Wrong knowledge is called Moha. And in order to have wrong knowledge, what must one have? No knowledge. This is the fun part. First, one must not know, and then one must have the gall to come to wrong conclusions about the self Jiva, about oneself, about the world, the Jagat, and about Ishvara, Bhagavan, God. This is what one has to do. And so, this is so Savilasa, so Mahamoha means the great, the shark or the crocodile or the killer whale of great delusion. The Guru makes short shrift of it, like has it for a meal, swallows the moha whole. Whose moha? Your moha. Yes, it's not somebody else's moha. It's one's own moha, my own moha, the Guru will eat up. And why should the Guru eat my moha? Moha here is both ajnanam. Ajnanam means what? Self-ignorance. Ajnanam, not knowing who I am, and then for the time being we'll say not knowing I am Brahman. I am big, I am bigness itself, I am limitless, I am whole, I am free of all complexes. Not knowing that is the first problem. And the second problem is coming to wrong conclusions about who I am. This is moha. First is ajnana, second is moha. Mahamoha means there is no end to the wrong conclusions about the self that one can come. I am wanting, I am not lovable, I am fat, I am thin, I am... people have so many ideas. These are all body-based conclusions about the self, mind-based conclusions about the self. I am restless, I am ignorant, I am knowledgeable, whatever it is. Prana-based conclusions about the self, I am hungry, etc. Emotion-based conclusions about the self, I am angry. And these days you can, you mix up the prana and the emotions and you have a new condition. I am hangry. Yes. What is this hangry? I have hunger which I ignored for a long time, and the hunger turned into anger. This is what is called hangry. All this is moha. Who has moha? Only the human being has the dubious distinction of having this mahamoha. No other life form. Only the human jiva. Why? Because there is the animal does not have a complex centered on itself. It is within Bhagavan's purview, it is programmed. It is programmed to bark, it's programmed to meow, it's programmed to moo, it's programmed to be domesticated, it's programmed to reproduce, it's programmed to eat grass, and then it is programmed to die away after its lifespan is over. That's why there is no problem. With cows, cats, dogs, there are no problems. They also may have some small desires and they may come to certain conclusions. They also are capable of making inferences. In the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, there is a very nice example. If you are Trinapani means you are holding grass in your hand and you go to a group of cows, what will they say? What will they think? This person is a friend coming to feed me, and they will approach you. Next day you go carrying a stick. What will they do? You become Dandapani, you carry a stick, and then they will run away. Why? Because they have some memory and they have made some inference. And what is the memory? Being beaten earlier was the memory by the farmer, by the owner, whoever, And then, oh my God, I know what this tick means. I have to get out of this sticky situation. So thinking they will run away from there. Simple inferences and enough knowledge to recognize one's own species for the sake of propagation, and enough knowledge to recognize predators, and this is for the sake of preservation of the species. This constitutes their knowledge. This constitutes this, and even they have Atma Ajnanam, self ignorance, they also have. Definitely they have self ignorance, but it does not cause moha, it does not cause problems. In fact, the dog is happier than all the people in the world. Yes, definitely happy. And the cat is happier still, yes. I don't need you, you need me. This is how it says. It's in a position of power. So therefore, it's only the human being where the Prakriti, Mother Nature, has given her all in making this uninhibited mind, uninhibited awareness. In all other animal and plant forms, the awareness is inhibited. Here the awareness is uninhibited. Everything becomes evident to me, and then I become evident to myself. I am self-evident. This is a very big blessing. Wonderful. Because we have limitless desires. We have the desire to go study about ourselves. We have the desire to go achieve something which nobody else has achieved. Whatever it is, we have the desires that nobody else could even think of. Some people have those kinds of desires. Very unique desires, creative desires, no limit to the desires. This is the blessing. But every blessing also comes with a challenge. If it's the blessing is the privilege, if it is not managed, what will happen? It will become a challenge. And what is the challenge that is alongside this blessing? What is the challenge? The challenge is that I am free enough to desire, but I am also free enough to come to wrong conclusions about myself. This is the challenge. Ajnanam does not cause problems. Even the cow has ajnanam, dog has ajnanam, cat has ajnanam. Only in the human mind, ajnanam causes problem because it is alongside what we call anyatha jnanam. Wrong conclusions. I'm free enough to come to the wrong conclusions about myself. I am wanting. This is the basic wrong, universal wrong conclusion. This is not a wrong conclusion in one particular head, because then it can easily be remedied. This is the wrong conclusion in every head, which is why everyone tries to get ahead. This is why one does that. In every head, this is the problem. I am wanting. And every which way you look at it, this wantingness doesn't go away. Height-wise wanting. That's why somebody went and invented, what is that called? High heels. Yes. Every step becomes a travesty. All right. And then what else do we have? And weight-wise, one is wanting. Either too little or too much. And then what else? Financially, of course, one is wanting. All the time one is wanting. Everybody says, from the richest person to the poorest person, they will say, I don't have money. Each one says. This shows how subjective that feeling is. Happiness-wise, one is wanting. Resources-wise, one is wanting. Wanting means limited. And this limited individual goes and enters into a marriage with another limited individual. Limited plus limited? Yes, private limited. Okay, this is what happens. It does not become infinite. Finite plus finite does not the infinite make. And so this is moha, maha moha, in the form of this killer whale, which is got the scent of this blood and is after oneself. This moha is like the killer whale that has already got the scent of the blood, and it is just a matter of time before it catches hold. This is what this is exactly what the teaching is all about. When this moha goes away, then what will happen is that this knowledge is a cakewalk. It's a walkover, because one happens to be self-evident, one happens to be the self-evident Atma, Atman, which is Brahman. So what I want is not away from me, it is myself alone. And what I want to be is whole, free, limitless, without a second. And I am already that. But still continuing to shed tears like the person sitting on a treasure chest. The person is sitting on a chest full of all kinds of jewels and money and gold, silver, diamonds, all kinds of precious metals, sitting on the chest with a begging bowl in the hand, crying bitter tears. Help me, please. Give me something. I haven't eaten in 3 days. I am so poor. Look at me. Have pity. What will you tell this person? Huh? What will you tell? Will you tell, please stand on one leg and do some tapas? Yeah? Will that help? No? Will you tell, please do some bhajans, kirtans? That also will not help. What will you tell this person? You are already the owner of the treasure which you think is lost, which you think is gone, which you think is not there. This is what you have to tell. And this is exactly what the Guru tells. This is why the job of the Guru is just a one job. It is there to eat up, like that. What is that game that is there? Pac-Man, yes. To eat up like the Pac-Man all the delusions and doubts. And in so doing, that which was eclipsing the doubts and the delusion, the Mahamoha, which was eclipsing the self, the eclipse gone, the sun-like self shines in all its glory. This is what the Guru's only job is. The Guru's job is not to babysit the student, not to keep the student in a good mood, not to do anything except to teach this knowledge, to tell the student, to tell the Shishya that you are sitting on the treasure chest that you are looking for. This is you, this belongs to you, we would say in case of the Drishtanta, the example, in the case of that which is exemplified, the Darshtanta, we will say that the treasure chest is yourself alone. You are the treasure that you want, you are that which you are looking for. All the wantingness and the feeling that I am a wanting person, I have all these desires, I am small, I don't matter. Everything is based on a wrong conclusion. This wrong conclusion is the Maha Moha, which the Guru has to first illumine and then take away. That is the single and the only job of the Guru. It's not that knowledge is poured into the head, the knowledge is already there because you are what you seek. This is Vedanta in one sentence. You can remember that and tell your friends afterwards and look very cool, okay? Seeker is the sort, you are what you seek. And whatever else that you are seeking is because you don't know what you are seeking, that what you are seeking, you are already the possessor of this nidhi, this treasure that you are seeking. But then I have this feeling of bondage. I have this pain. I have this sorrow. Only after all that goes, then only I can stop seeking. And so for that, what will Swami Vidyaranya say? We can look at the 5th verse, which is because the first verse is a bombshell, and then because if we haven't studied the first 9 chapters, it will not make any sense. So we will ease into it by looking at the 5th verse. You can just repeat. Avicharakrito bandhah, avicharakrito bandhah, vicharena nivartate. Avicharakrito bandhah, vicharena nivartate. Tasmajjivaparaatmanau, tasmajjivaparaatmanau, sarvadaiva vicharayet, sarvadaiva vicharayet. The bondage is notional, says the 5th verse of this beautiful chapter. The bondage is notional. The bondage is not real, thank God. If bondage were real, then that which is real means that which is abadhitam, that which cannot be removed, which cannot be negated. If bondage is real, it cannot be negated. If bondage is unreal, then it need not be negated. Correct? That unreal means what? Non-existent. It need not be negated. Do you have to get rid of a non-existent entity? No. Why? Because it's not even there. So what is the nature of this bondage? This is what is going to be a very important discussion. And what is the nature of this bondage? The nature of this bondage is as though. This is a word this is a phrase we should learn all the time. And then the freedom is not very far away. This as though bondage, which has the abhasa, appearance of being real. And how did this bondage come about? If the student asks, avichara kritaha, caused by non-enquiry. If non-enquiry into the I caused the bondage, what is the antidote? Enquiry. Vicharena nivartate. Through enquiry, it goes away. Tasmat, therefore, please do enquiry. Into what? Into that which makes you feel limited, bound, small. What is that? I am small. This sense of individuality. This sense of individuality, which is very delimiting, do enquiry into that, and then do enquiry into the source of that universe, which is Ishvara, limitless. Brahman, and into this Para Atma, the limitless Atma. These two things, which I think are very far away, because when you say the word God, we look up. I don't know why, but somehow there is this feeling that somewhere far away, Paroksha is this thing, this entity called God. And so Vedanta posits something that is very, very odd, looks very odd, that you are non-separate from this cause of the universe. And this is what you have to understand. This is what you have to, this is how you have to go forward. More we'll see tomorrow. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadagya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Shubha Ratri.
So I'd like to thank again very much Swamini Satma Vidyananda Saraswati for this beautiful teaching. Let's give another big hand. And Swamini ji will continue this program for the upcoming week or so in the morning and evening satsangs. So we'll continue with the teachings tomorrow in the morning. So we'll go over the schedule for tomorrow. So we'll have the morning satsang here at 6 a.m. and Swamini Satma